I mustn't run away. 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 What's up guys, Super Golden Key here, coming at you with another figure review. So today we're going to be looking at the Legacy of Revoltech Neon Genesis Evangelion Unit 1. So before we take a look at the figure itself, let's take a look at the box. So the box it comes in is pretty uniform in its look, just a plain yellow with some text, the Evangelion test type 1. And so the difference between this is not the original version, this is the Legacy of Revoltech, which basically means it's a re-release. And on the side, there's some things that I can't read, and some pictures of Unit 1. On the back of the box you have all sorts of crazy stuff. It shows all a bunch of poses and stuff you can get into, and a bunch of things and words and stuff that I can't read, but I assume they all say awesome stuff. On the bottom here it shows you like a bunch of the joints and stuff, and shows you all the accessories it comes with right here. It comes with a stand, and it shows you all the on the back. We'll get to some of this later. On the other side of the box you have a picture of Unit 1, and it says Evangelion Test Type 1. And on the top it says a bunch of stuff and another picture of Unit 1. At the bottom a bunch of things and stuff and more stuff I can't read, and legal stuff and all that boring junk. And that's pretty much it for the box. So this is a figure from a show called Neon Genesis Evangelion, and that's all we're going to say about it. Basically it's supposed to just be a giant robot, and it looks like a giant robot, so I'd say it's pretty successful in that manner. The painting is very nice. It's very clean all around. The green, the purple, bits of red and orange and stuff. It all looks really, really nice. So I've seen people have problems with the paint before, but no such problems on mine. So the articulation on this thing is really something to talk about, because Revoltech is a company that designed their own type of joint called a revoltech joint, and they want to flaunt this as much as possible. So they will put revoltech joints everywhere, just like in this figure. Pretty much everything is a revoltech joint. And if you're wondering what a revoltech joint is, this thing right here is a revoltech joint. And it's basically sort of like a ball joint, but not really. So it has these two pegs on the side, and then it also can bend. But these things are special in the fact that they are ratchet joints, meaning that they are very clickety, clackety, and very, very sturdy. One thing is for sure, you will not have to worry about this figure getting loose. So revoltech joints in themselves are a good idea. It's just not a good idea to put them as every single joint, because some joints don't work as ratchet joints, and you'll see that later on. So to start off the articulation, the head can look up a decent amount, not extremely far, but down it can look quite a bit down, and it can move side to side, and if you mess around with that joint enough, I'm sure you can get it to rock side to side. The neck is also on a joint, which means it can move way far out, and along with the neck he can look pretty much as down as humanly possible. And having it come out, you can also turn the neck side to side. This little thing right here is a soft plastic, and sort of just slide that back in there. So the head articulation is very, very good. The arms are probably for me the most difficult part, meaning that these are one of the things that don't really work that well as ratchet joints. So inside of the socket there is a rotation joint that can rotate it sort of back and forth. And when I first got this thing, all the joints were tight, extremely tight, to the point where I was afraid that I was going to break it. But after messing around with it for a while, they sort of loosened up a little bit. But they're still a bit uncomfortable to use. So they can also move out using the revoltech joints. These shoulder pads are also revoltech joints, which means they can move out all around and stuff, so you don't really have to worry about these getting in the way, which is really nice because it allows for much more arm articulation without having to worry about these getting in the way all the time. And now one of the big problems with revoltech joints is it's kind of difficult to tell where something is supposed to click into, because if you put pressure on the wrong part, I guarantee you these things will probably break. So you just have to be very careful when posing this thing. So aside from that revoltech joint in there, it can also have a tiny bit of a bicep swivel, not too much. The elbow is of course a ratchet joint, so it can move. So this is the problem with revoltech joints, because sometimes they'll get misaligned and then you have to fidget around with them to get them properly. Once you get it situated, it has an extreme elbow joint that can turn inward pretty far. And the joint can also count as an elbow swivel or a bicep swivel. It works better as a bicep swivel than the actual bicep swivel, so that works pretty well for that. The joints, or the wrists, are also a sort of revoltech joint, meaning it's basically the same thing except it's not ratcheted, which is kind of nice because if it had ratcheted wrist joints, that would be a pain. So you can twist it, you can push it inward and outward, all that sorts of stuff, and if you rotate it, you can get it to go side to side and all that sorts of good stuff. And so the abdomen area is a bit tricky, because you have this upper joint right here, and this thing is super tight, like extremely tight. Like I didn't even realize that this thing was a joint when I first opened it out of the box, because it would not move. The only reason I even figured out was it was a joint was because it said so on the back of the box. So after sort of messing around with it, I got it sort of loosened up to where I can actually move it, and you can get it about 2 clicks forward. It doesn't really make that much of a difference, so I wouldn't really worry about using it that often. It can go back some as well, and all that good stuff. Now the joint that you're mainly going to use for the torso articulation is the one in the bottom, because this thing can go down a decent amount, a decent crunch, and it can also go back quite a bit as well. So the lower piece is pretty much what you're going to use mostly for the crunching, and each joint also has a swivel, so you can move that side to side and get it to turn and twist and stuff like this. And these are really the only parts I have that are loose. Thankfully the crunching part isn't loose because it's ratcheted, but the swiveling part is kind of loose. But that isn't really a problem because it's not detrimental to the articulation. These legs, I really love these legs because of how they're designed. They're kind of designed like the newer SH Figuarts legs, meaning that you have a separate joint that goes forward quite a bit. You can really get it going, and then backwards also quite a bit. And then apart from that, you also have a joint that moves outward, and of course that is also a revoltech joint. So you can combine those two to get all sorts of leg articulation. And underneath there are these little flaps that sort of cover up the joint so it looks nicer. And just make sure you always have this tucked underneath the leg to keep it sort of covered and stuff. Sometimes it's a pain to get back in, but it's not that bad. And so utilizing these two, you can get quite an impressive range of motion. So not only can this revoltech joint in there move out, but it can also move inward. So if you want the legs to be closer together, you can do that too. The knees are also revoltech joints. Pretty much everything in this is a revoltech joint, like I said. But this, the knees work really well. Like, that is a really good knee bend. Like, this is further than I can bend my knees. So you have that, and then it also sort of counts as a thigh swivel, or a knee swivel. The one up here also has a thigh swivel, but it's really limited, so you don't really get a whole lot out of that. So the knee swivel works kind of better. And then the ankles, I really appreciate what they did with this. So the ankles are also ratchet revoltech joints, so they can go down, and they can also go up. But the thing about this is you have this, like this, I guess it's like a tongue of a shoe sort of thing, and this is made out of a soft plastic. And so you're able to move it forward without having to worry about breaking it, because it isn't hard, it's soft, so it'll bend. So that is really nice. And the toe, you also have a toe hinge right there. So speaking of soft plastic, a lot of the abdominal pieces, like right here, and in the back right here, those are also soft plastic, so you don't really have to worry about those breaking when moving the waist and abdomen and stuff. So the ankles also have a very nice pivot. It only goes inward, so it doesn't go outward, but like most, it doesn't go outward because that would be breaking your ankles. So, realistic pivot. And overall, the articulation on this thing, once you get used to it, is really, really good. Because like when I first got it, it was really tight and I wasn't really comfortable posing it a whole bunch. But the more I messed around with it, the more comfortable I got with it, and now I just have lots of fun posing it. And I will show you later on just how extreme the articulation can be when you get into some poses. One thing I will say when working with the articulation is watch out for this little antenna on the end of the forehead, because this thing is not soft plastic. This is hard, rigid plastic. So, and it's also very thin. So if you breathe on this thing wrong or drop it, this is almost certainly going to break off. Luckily, I haven't broken it off, and hopefully I never will. But just be careful about that when posing it. So far this is a pretty great figure. Tons of articulation, really good painting. So it's pretty expressive, but oh no, it comes with so much more. So now let's get into the accessories. So first of all, it comes with its two very iconic weapons. The Tallet rifle, which is very nicely sculpted. You can't really see it on camera, but it has a sort of metallic sheen to it. Looks very nice and looks very uniform and clean. Then you also have a progressive knife, which also looks very nice. It's very, it's not really sharp, like, sort of, but you're not gonna have to worry about cutting yourself with this or anything. The paint is also very nice on this as well. It also comes with an alternate head, and this is a damaged head, so it's missing its right eye, and the mouth is open. We'll talk about this more further into the video, because it has more importance when you put it with the rest of the set. It also comes with this neat little translucent blood splatter effect that if you take the head, this works with either head, I'll just do it with this one, you can sort of get it in. It's sort of a pain to get in because you have to orient it properly. Once you do, it sort of tabs into the back of the head and into the eye socket, and then you have that. I mean, gotta lose that eye somehow.